Hey there, hope you're doing good. As we continue refactoring Futurecam, let's look at this task. This should be straightforward and simplify a lot of other tasks. We have a lot of debug code in Futurecam. Which is guarded by this hash if. Now this actually caused a lot of complexity. There are two code paths to maintain, and the internal UI was different from the external UI. So I didn't want to do that. We shouldn't do that. So we should remove these. Because if you do want to debug something, you can always make a code change directly, instead of using this hash if and not commit your change. We need to look at line 900. Should enable excess features. So now that these two are the same, we can probably replace one with the other. Or true, okay? So then let's just make it if true. We can remove this IIFE here. Oh, this is no longer used. Excellent. Okay, this is used in a few places. We should also think about whether these two can be deduped. This uses available, this uses available. This is the definition. Yeah. There we go. This hash if will basically become hash if 0, which means until this end if this code is removed. Again, this code is removed. We should look at these two. Update manual controls and update is hidden. Let's do it right now. It's invoked twice. Is also invoked multiple times. So let's see. Why don't we just delete this? Update manual controls has become update is hidden. This has been removed. This function, because we removed all this, it became equivalent to update is hidden. Yeah, we don't have these two variables, long exp kernels and available long exp kernels. We don't have this IIFE and creating this and initializing to some, then appending some. All this is gone. Should enable excess features is gone. There was one thing I wanted to check which I missed. I think it's here. Yes, I wanted to check if this is being used. No. If you call it, keeps calling itself again, but nobody calls it in the first place. Oh, this can also be removed. Oops, I pressed Z instead of Shift. Sorry for that. Wonderful. I remember making some other change to main controller. Reveal in Explorer view. Open timeline. Where did that go? Did it open somewhere or? Oh, here. Oh no, this is not what I want. I want the Git history. Never mind, I'll just go to GitHub. By the way, this can be done. Yay. History. not this. Not this either. Thought I made that change in the morning. It's not 2 days ago. I think I reverted it instead of committing it. Okay, never mind. Let's not spend more time here. Here, I want to look for return. There was a function whose first line just said return. And there was nothing else. Meaning there was some code, but it would never execute. Yeah, never mind. Okay. What should we call this? Yeah, remove shift. So yeah, this visible was never used. It was always set to true. Ideally, based on this flag, it should be set to true or false. So we can remove this function. And the calls to it. Okay, never mind, we'll keep it. It may be useful someday. Oops, it undid past the last commit. Let's find something more useful to do than clean up this particular code. Yeah, this is an easy task to do. Session.is using a remove should take AV capture device. So there are two extensions, one called AV capture device, the other called AV capture device input. Both of them have wide, tele, ultra wide and front. These are computed properties. Just a thin wrapper around some iOS function, which will query the system and return the appropriate one. So these are fine, but these are not fine because these are stored properties and we don't want global variables like this because everyone can access them. You don't, you can't control them anymore. Whereas if they are not global variables, you can control who has access. Only classes that you pass a reference to this variable to have access. So we need to clean this up. But the first step to clean this up is to reduce some of the use. So here func is using. Oh, this can be we can make this a device. Wait, let's look at the session first. Here at the underlying level, let's change this. This is what I was looking for. Okay. So let's write it the naive way. We can use higher order functions if appropriate for existing input in inputs. If let existing input equal to existing input as, this is an AV capture input, so we cast it to an AV capture device input, and then existing input equal to input. I think triple equal to compares that the reference is the same. Yes. Return true. Return false. So if there are no inputs at all, or if the existing input is null, so you cast it. If the cast fails, it's not a device input, it won't even come into this block, it will go to the next one. If the cast succeeds, like you won't have nil in this array, AV capture session. Yeah, inputs is an array of AV capture input, which is not optional. So this will never be nil. It will either be this type or some other type. So if it is this type, then you check. If this is nil, anyway the check won't kind of pass. And if you match, you return true, otherwise you keep going through the array. Let's see if we can write it as a higher order function. Return inputs dot contains. I think I do use it somewhere. No, I don't. Okay, never mind. Input dot contains $0 is the variable, 0 guardlet You can give an explicit name like this, or you can go with the default $0. Cardlet existing input equal to existing input as AV capture device input, else return false. Now it's not returning false from is using, it's returning false from the closure. Otherwise you are returning existing input equal to input. So both are the same level of complexity roughly in lines of code. This has one, I mean it's not a good way of evaluating complexity, but for what it's worth, 1 2 3 4, here 1 2 3 4 5 6. Oh, but then you have this on the same line, otherwise it would be, yeah, it's practically the same thing. So here, if you leave aside the lines of code and think about logically trying to understand this code, you are asking this array if it contains something, and for each of them you are invoking this closure, you are checking if it is this, else you are returning false. Yeah, I don't think the higher order function is any easier to understand, so let's not make it unnecessarily complicated. Oh, quite a lot of references. This is easy. You can get the device object and check that. So let's go ahead and just change this without thinking too much. If let device, this should work. We'll just test it again. Class vehicle car, which extends from vehicle or subclasses vehicle in iOS speak, and you have another function called close door, let's say. Do something with a vehicle the vehicle, and you do if let vehicle equal to vehicle as car vehicle dot close door. Here you cannot call vehicle dot close door because it's a vehicle, not a car, as far as I know. Let's check this. Vehicle dot start engine vehicle dot close door. I expect an error in line 17. Oh my god. Oh, these funks, not wars. Yes, value of type vehicle has no member close door in line 17. Now do something with a vehicle. This should only print vroom. Yes. Now if you do something with a car, it should print thud followed by vroom. Yes, it does. So it works. I had some doubt about the scope of this. I think guardlet has a weird scope. Anyway, we can get to that later on. So if let, so I don't need to use another variable. That was the whole purpose. Input as AV capture device input. If it is, you get the device from it. Now you check the device. This is not optional. We are removing the reference to these variables here. Okay, cool. That's what we are doing. So that in the future we can delete them. Hopefully in this commit, but at least in the future, if not in this commit. Now, here you should change find these can't be done. The remove calls, wait, yeah, let's go ahead, we'll see if this works. Here remove, oh, it's the same code except that we are going to iterate, and this time we are going to remove it instead of returning true or false. This would be device. For we can just call this input, because we don't need to disambiguate with the argument. I am returning because otherwise the iteration may get affected. Swift remove while iterating. You can't, in many languages you can't do that. In Java you get a concurrent modification exception. which language is this? Oh. Okay, cool. So how are you removing an AV capture device? You are iterating over all the inputs. If any of them is a device input and the device and each device is same as the device that you are trying to remove, then you remove that input and you return. Now my question is there any other usage of remove in this? With a device, it's always called with a device, and it's implemented using a device. So this is good. So let's reevaluate this code. This is an overridden function. We can't change the type. So first we have to remove conflicting inputs. First, remove conflicting inputs. You check it as an AV capture device input, and then you access the device. Depending on whether if it is wide, you remove tele front ultra wide. If it is tele, you remove wide front ultra wide. If it is front, you remove the other three. If it is ultra wide, you remove the other three. Actually, I think it's too convoluted because you have an accessor that returns the device. It's here. You still need to iterate to get the device input or input. So you can do this if device equal to camera device to find out whether you are using the device to be removed. And if this returns false, you can return because you're not using it, so there's nothing to remove. But if it returns true, what do? Again, you need to run this code, so there's no simplification possible. So for each of them, cast it, check the device, and then remove it and return. It's not needed. There won't be multiple inputs with the same device, but if at all there is. So remove is taken care of. Yeah, we were going to look for, okay, it takes a device and checks with the session. Okay, this will require more work. Okay, this is not a reference to any of the white tele front. Let's go through all of this. This is just a cast, and this is just a cast. Here you have a reference. Yeah, let's look at the diffs. Better session. So the goal is to remove conflicting inputs. So how do you do that? In the old code, you directly access the static variables. Now what do you do? If the input is a device input, then you get the device, then you compare it, and you remove the others. Here you are removing the device inputs, here you are removing the devices. And how do you do that? For each of them, check if it's a device input, then access the device, check if it is this, and if it is nil, the equality will never pass, so it will be an op. Otherwise, if you do find the device, remove that input. Okay, cool. Here is using is changed to use AV capture device, and it's a pass-through for session anyway. We should remove some of these pass-throughs. Here again we are checking AV capture device. Is using, you are iterating through each of them. You are checking if it's a device input, then checking if the, oh, you should, existing input dot device. This is not an input anymore, this is a device. So okay, let's call it input because it no longer collides. Okay, for each of the input in inputs, check if it's a device input, get its device, check if it's same as the given device, if so return true. So both remove and is using have been changed this way. The frame producer also, yes. Remove some uses of the static variables in AV capture device input. It has been a while, so let's stop this video here and I'll see you in the next one.